everyone, and welcome to the very special 10th episode of Viral Banter. Double digits, how exciting. The time is flying by and we are so excited by the amazing response we are getting to the show so far from Generation Liberty members and all liberty-loving teens. Now, as we all know, stories are still coming in from the US and across the world about protests and riots around the world. And at Generation Liberty, we do believe that we need to have more conversations, not less, but we do also understand that the current 24-hour news cycle can be a little bit exhausting. So today, we thought we'd take on a little bit of an easier topic, like, the meaning of life. But seriously, deep questions about what it means to be human and the human experience and how we perceive reality, I actually think are more important than ever right now. So welcome to the philosophy special of Viral Banter. So today we are once more joined by four amazing guests. First off, I will welcome a regular to the show, Laura Glaze from the University of Sydney.
Hi, Renee. Hi, everyone. Good to be back.
How are you doing, Laura?
I am doing fabulously, and I'll tell you why. It's because for the first time since quarantine began, my nails are done. And to all you people going, oh, your nails, blah, 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 this is so important and so vital. So I'm very happy. I'm a very happy girl.
The little bit of self-love always does the trick.
I'm helping local businesses.
Oh, 100%. Really, some real positive stuff coming out already. And Luca, another regular, welcome to the show again.
Hi Renee, how you going? Hi everyone. Unfortunately, haven't done my nails. Can't relate, but yes, good to be back.
And another regular on the show, my amazing and always insightful assistant, Theodora.
Hi Renee, thank you for having me back. Good to see you again.
Oh, great to see you. And great to see you even over video conferencing. I miss seeing you every day in the office.
Same here.
We have a very special guest today. He is an active Generation Liberty member. He is a first-year medical student at Monash University. Everyone please welcome Peumike.
G'day Renee, super excited to be here. My very first episode of Viral Banter. I'm looking forward to an awesome discussion.
Peumike, because you reached out to me about GenLib, I'd just like to know kind of how you found out about GenLib and why you got involved and why you're excited about it.
Yeah, I think it'll probably have to be Luca's amazing videos on Instagram caught my eye, I think, at the beginning. And it was just quite passionate and quite revealing how much misinformation is out there at the moment. And I think the IPA and Generation Liberty have provided a bit of clarity when there's so much confusion in the world, and to really stand by our principles of liberty and justice. I think it's just so important now more than ever.
That's amazing to hear, and you are really hitting on some real strong GenLib points, so I can tell you're deep into the GenLib material that's out there. So today we'll be talking about philosophy. So I thought I would just start by asking you, have any of you studied philosophy at university or even in high school? Starting with you, Luca.
Yeah, I'm actually doing philosophy now as part of my arts degree. Yeah, I don't like to say that out too loud, but I am doing philosophy. It's currently my minor and I'm 1.5 years in, and I can't say I'm looking at doing anything else, to be honest. It's quite fun.
Cool. And how about you, Laura? Have you done any philosophy at uni?
Never any formal study of philosophy. I'm also an art student, so I study history and philosophy, history and politics. So we do have a look at different philosophical thinkers and how they've shaped, society, how they've changed social discourse throughout history. So that's sort of the most I've done, really.
And Theodora?
So mine's a bit of an interesting story. I haven't studied philosophy at school, or not really at uni, but in first year I did this introduction to philosophy subject called Reason. It turned out to be like a Marxism indoctrination camp, and it was really horrible. But there was a silver lining to that story, because on the day the final essay was due, I saw an ad for a Generation Liberty event that night, And that was the first Generation Liberty event I went to because I was so fed up with this subject. I was like, oh, I need to go and hear some sane people talk. So that's how I got involved with Generation Liberty.
Oh, that's really, really lovely story. And Peumike, so your first year into university and you're doing medicine, but did you do any philosophy in high school or any extracurricular stuff with it?
Yeah, well, philosophy has been a big feature of my life for as long as I can remember. But it only really kicked off in year 11 when I took philosophy as a VCE subject. And from that moment onwards, I was hooked. I became obsessed with the works of people as diverse as Nietzsche to Kant and the great English thinkers and post-Socratic Greek thinkers. But now entering medicine, I thought that this kind of persistent engagement in philosophical thought would diminish, but in fact has gotten stronger, I feel. In the course, we're encouraged to think beyond the biomedical perspective and explore the human behind the condition. And that opens up a whole number of pathways ranging from bioethics to questions concerning metaphysics. And I hope to potentially explore that bioethics component in either an honours or PhD capacity later down the track. And I also continue to read philosophy outside the course as well. And eventually quite a bit into political philosophy, and that's always very, very interesting. And I could relate with Theodora on being subject to quite a few radical pieces on the other side of the field, but it's been all enjoyable, and I think it's been more revealing as it has enjoyable, I'd say.
Yeah, that's really fascinating to hear how much of an impact and how much is going through all of your life. And I found that whilst I was kind of preparing for this show and going over philosophy, I was pulling out Jordan Peterson's book, Dostoyevsky, but then also I touched onto game theory for a while, and I wanted to read A Beautiful Mind. I wanted to watch A Beautiful Mind again, so it all kind of connects. But for the philosophy special, I thought we would start with some famous philosophical thought problems to get us thinking. So we're going to begin with the famous experience machine thought experiment. So this is kind of like the predecessor to the red pill, blue pill thing about your perception of reality. So the experience machine is thought to have been created by Robert Nozick in 1974 in the book Anarchy, State and Utopia. So the thought experiment is that they've created a machine which can replicate life perfectly. And you can go to a laboratory and sit down with them for 3 days a week and detail your absolutely perfect life. And then they will put you in the tank, in the experience machine, and you will live out your life in the machine. And you will not know you've been put in the machine. They will wipe all memories of you going to that lab. It will be like you are living your real life, but you are actually in the tank, and as such, your actions have any impact on the world. So, first question is really, Luca, do you get in the tank or the experience machine?
You've really put us on the spot there, Renee. Jeepers, I thought you said this was going to be a warm-up exercise. Look, I think this, especially looking at the breakdown of the experiment, what you have is a jump. Basically, the big jump is premise 3, right? Which is we have reason not to get in the tank. And the question is, well, why? One of the counter arguments is, well, it's because we've never had the experience of getting into a tank like that where everything we ever wanted to be is there for us. Therefore, our intuitions are wrong. I don't think so. I don't think that's quite convincing. Firstly, it seems kind of evasive. So I don't think that's a really good counter argument. I think the reason we don't have a reason to get into the tank is because above pleasure, we have a desire for truth. And you can see that play out everywhere in the world, really. For example, what you have is people who are willing to undergo, and this is something that Jordan Peterson talks about a lot, is this idea of undergoing suffering in order to experience truth. It's what the Matrix shows us. The Matrix shows us that you're willing to take the red pill and, find out what truth really is. I remember there was a Twilight Zone episode, one of the OG Twilight Zone, like black and white episodes. I don't know if you guys have ever watched that, where basically, yeah, it's a great show. Rod Sterling, great guy. And what happens is a guy, he goes, he's living his best life, and what he does is he finds, like, for example, there's an assistant. He goes to a casino and all of the odds are in his favor and stuff like that, right? Everything he ever wants, he gets. And what he finds is that he gets really bored. He hates it, right? And then plot twist, the guy says, I hate heaven. He thinks he's died and gone to heaven. And he says, I don't want to be in heaven anymore. I hate it.
Spoiler alert.
And the assistant goes, plot twist, this is hell. Right?
So
spoiler alert.
So Twilight Zone, like that is a typical Twilight Zone ending.
That's such a Twilight Zone episode. Yeah, spoiler alert, guys, but it's like, whoa. And what does that tell us? It tells us that even though we have this desire, we think that what we want is pleasure. But then when the opportunity arises to have everything we ever wanted, we find that that need gets superseded by the need for truth. And that's why people are willing to go out and speak on stages and possibly get things thrown at them, undergo public vitriol, because they're willing to go out and fight for truth and try and find out the truth. And sure, there are people out there who are going to be really happy with, living their lives and just kind of not really engaging with that kind of debate and being happy with living their lives. That's up to them. But it's undeniable that there is a basic need to find truth and to suffer to find truth.
No, that's a really, really important point there, Luca. Funnily enough, when you were giving that really insightful speech about that, when you mentioned that character, like getting everything they wanted and getting bored, all it made me think of was this new YouTube channel I'm watching where this guy pretty much breaks Skyrim so he can defeat everyone. Like he becomes like a god king, and he's like his journey through it is like, maybe you're not supposed to play Skyrim like this.
Yeah, there's a reason. Yeah, exactly. No, like for example, I've been playing Minecraft with the guys, as I mentioned before, right? And one of my mates, he's gotten all these enchants. Like if you hit him, you take damage by hitting him, right? Like he's a literal god in Minecraft, even though it's survival. And he's gone and created another world because he got sick of playing in our world because he's basically become a god. There's no challenge anymore, right? And it just seems like, there's got to be more to it. If once you've achieved it, albeit in a very small way, like on Minecraft or on Skyrim, right? You're still searching for a challenge and you're still searching for something else. And at the end of the day, we're still going to get off Minecraft and we're still going to go to our job or go study, right? So that we can better ourselves, so that we can accrue knowledge. And that points to, we're willingly paying for a university degree that at times can honestly be so painful, so painful, right? Especially with like, Marxist indoctrination and stuff like that. It can be really painful, but we're going out there to accrue knowledge and to understand truth. And we're willing to put ourselves through that suffering. So, yeah.
Very, very true there, Luca. Theodora, what do you think? Would you get in the tank, and would you explain why you would or why you wouldn't?
Well, I think I definitely wouldn't get into the machine, because I guess my main problem with it is that by hooking up your life to this thing, you're limiting your experience to man-made experience and sort of saying there's nothing beyond what man creates that adds meaning to your life. But I mean, like as a Christian, I would object to that, of course, because, I think I think human life does not end with death. And I think that you have to suffer and bear sacrifices. Like, it's like a Jordan Peterson would say this as well. And as Luke has been saying, you have to suffer and you have to live through life's experience. And that's what gives life meaning. So what good is meaningless pleasure if you don't really gain anything by it? Like there's no higher purpose. You don't have to make hard choices and think about morals. You don't have to have human relationships and go through the ups and downs of life and improve yourself, which is something like everyone should be doing. We should be taking the risks that come with life, doing the hard yards, gaining life experience, learning from our mistakes, and you can't do that if you don't make mistakes. So ultimately you're going to be a very insipid, boring, unimproved version of yourself if you are in just a constant passive state of pleasure, I think.
But
so
Theodora, you forget one thing. I forget one thing, which you can throw a spanner in the works. You could program the machine to throw up challenges.
Yeah, but is that? But hang on.
Got him.
Then it becomes like, you know, a video game. Can you tell the guy running the machine, here, I'll slip you $5 and you can, you know, give me a little hint to get around this level. I'll spend a couple of dollars on a cheat code or a little.
You're not aware you're in the machine.
Okay. Well.
Yeah. See, this all gets very convoluted. I love it.
So but you remember coming into the machine, or does it just replace?
No, it replaces everything.
Okay.
So they take you out every couple of months. I think that was the second part in response, but yeah, you don't remember going in. It's basically reality.
Wow.
So it's like you wake up and like life is more awesome than normal, but you have no idea why. Like it's like your life just suddenly becomes cool.
That's terrifying, and assuming that was listed in like the contract or whatever when I rocked up to the lab, I would definitely not do it. Too scary for me. No.
Well, no, I think the key difference there is that in one sense, okay, you're going into the machine, it's your reality, right? It's your perceived reality. But the problem here, this is where nihilism comes into play, right? If you believe that in the real world nothing matters, right? There would be no moral difference between you being in the machine and you existing in reality, right? There would be no moral difference because in either way, you have no consequences, right? The problem is that that's a really bad way of looking at life, right? Even though a lot of people say like, oh, in the long run, nothing matters. It does. In a small way, you have changed something in your world, right? And not just your world, but other people's world too. And that's the key difference, I think. That's the key moral difference. In a video game or in an experience machine, you effectively don't matter. I mean, yeah, the world is created around you, but you're not affecting anyone else. It's just you, right?
Yeah, well,
so no matter how many challenges and stuff, it's just you. Whereas in the real world, you have a ripple effect, right? On other people, on, you know, Renee, you're not just a program, right? There are going to be people who have a ripple effect on you, right? And that's therefore consequentially, you matter, right? And that's what I think is the key difference as well between the machine and reality as a whole, right?
Yeah. And Peumike, let's get you in on this conversation. Would you get in the tank? And if not, why would you not get in it? And if so, why would you get in it?
Well, I certainly would not get in the tank, and I kind of agree with what Luca and Theodora have said, because they've identified that the thought experiment centers around whether or not hedonism is correct. And I assume the proponent of the experience machine is attempting to show that there is a disconnect, that pleasure is not tied to our reality in the case of the experience machine. And it therefore loses some meaning and can't be what it is to live a good life. And in many ways, this is very, very true. Hedonism, in my opinion, misses the crux of what it is important in life. Individual agency, development culminating in, yes, achievement, but more importantly, self-realization. And when I say hedonism is disconnected from reality, it's multifaceted. So if we think back to the concept of hedonism and the machine, as Luca identified, you lose the pain and suffering of the real world, which leads to one's development, critical self-analysis and betterment. I'm kind of sounding like Nietzsche here, but that's precisely the point I'm trying to make. You lose that development that's so fundamental to being a human being. And I think it's something that no one would really want to give up. And even if we consider the concept of pleasure itself, it's the perspective and relative interpretation of external, potentially internal phenomena that gives it its meaning, that gives pleasure its meaning. Say, for example, I can guarantee you that eating Ferrero Rochers all day, every day, would not only give you type 2 diabetes, but would dramatically give you less satisfaction than, say, having it as a small treat after dinner would. In this kind of program, I could see you having Ferrero Rochers all day, every day. And not only is the pleasure diminished, but you as a human being are not really tied down to what our reality is. And there's something special about that, which we just can't discard so easily.
Yeah, I think there's some really, really interesting points. And I like that medical perspective you're bringing in there too. And Laura, would you get in the tank? And if not, why? And if so, yeah, why?
Yeah, no, I absolutely would not get into the tank for a few reasons. Drawing upon, I want to echo what everyone else said, but I've got a few points. First of all, I think the idea of perfection and the idea of what an awesome life would be and the idea of what pleasure is, it's all subjective and it's all relative. Like we were saying, it's things, we perceive things as being good only because we know what bad is. And there's that lovely quote, it's like, without darkness we couldn't see the stars, or without darkness we wouldn't know what light is. And so the idea that you can go into this machine and have a perfect life and everything is going well, and it's, if that was the way it was 24/7 the rest of our lives, that would just become the normal, and we wouldn't fully be able to appreciate it because we have nothing to compare it to. And it actually draws upon something that I was hearing about earlier on this week, the idea of it just reminded me of the people are talking about having a 4-day weekend. Sorry, a 4-day working week and a 3-day weekend. And people were saying, oh, that's great. Like, that's amazing. That'd be wonderful. What a great break that would be. And I was just thinking, like, yeah, it would be probably for a little bit, or at least in our lifetimes, because we can compare it to something that was a bit worse. But in a few years or a few generations, people are going to be like, well, I want a 3-day working week. This is pretty trash. So yeah, I just, the idea that everything is perfect really bothers me. I know you said, we can bring up challenges, but they're not real challenges. They're artificial, and they're not going to bring any meaning into our lives, because as soon as we want the challenge to stop, the challenge stops. There's no sense of overcoming any difficulties. So there's that. Secondly, you can make your life awesome anyway. The idea of, like, you don't know you're in the machine, everything's just a bit better, but you don't know why. You can have a great life in your own life without having to go into a machine. And if anything, it'll be better, because if you do manage to create a better life for yourself, it's going to be the result of some work that you've put in. And that is so much more satisfying. And so, if anything, it's more motivating that you don't need the machine. Your life can be better. If you're willing to put the work in, as long as you identify, the things that you want.
Yeah, I think you're bringing up some really interesting points there, Laura. And also, it's kind of connecting to my thinking on this. I'm really interested, the result of the thought, there's no right or wrong answer to thought experiments, but the person who created pretty much said that if you talk someone through it, no one's going to get a tank. And that is kind of taking down of hedonism. But talking about hedonism and kind of immediate pleasure, and this new kind of thing that's happening we're noticing with Generation Z and young people coming up who are actually going back to more traditional concepts, or looking into people like Dostoyevsky or great writers. Kind of like, I feel like they discuss the potholes and the problems with immediate like pleasure early on. So they learned that lesson early, and then I'm meeting all these awesome 17, 18-year-olds who have like, I've already learned immediate pleasure is silly. I've got that out of the way, and now I'm reading this book and this book.
Yeah, just
so this hunger.
What you're saying, Renee, you're absolutely spot on. There was this idea that you can get quite a hedonistic kick if you were to appease the crowd, and especially with young people nowadays, they join these radical movements in the university campuses, and they get this kind of hedonistic pleasure because they don't have to think about it. They feed off of the emotion that's really rushing through them, and that gives them this kind of unrefined kick. But then you have people who take a step back from all of this, think about it, which is difficult. Thinking is actually a very difficult thing to do. And that's the kind of pain that Nietzsche's talking about, that Peterson's talking about, that Luca and Theodora are talking about, and that Luce was also talking about. It's what really puts everything into perspective, and it's tough, and it's confronting, and it requires a lot of effort, but the reward that you get at the end is a kind of understanding which trumps that kind of eudaimonic, the kind of hedonic pleasure that we were talking about before. It's eudaimonic pleasure, which I think is what really, really stands out after that kind of confrontation with difficulty.
No, I think that's a really, really a good point, and also good news to hear. I've always got this positive message that I'm putting out about young people. I know that a lot of people who are, not on the left are really worried that, everyone's Antifa, all young people are Antifa right now. But I think I meet so many great and inspiring young people every day. And I think it's specifically because of the lack of meaning that they are hungering for meaning, they're rejecting pleasure, and they're going to these deep ideas. But following on from this philosophical discussion, which I'm loving, by the way, Laura, kind of adding to that, why do you think that young people especially should be engaged in philosophy?
Yeah, look, lots of reasons. I think philosophy does a really good job at explaining human nature in a as close to objective sense as possible. So, like humanities isn't like science or maths. There's when you're trying to find answers about human behavior and human nature, there are no objective answers. There's no one truth, and that's something that is someone who studies humanities, that's something that can be really frustrating sometimes. And so I reckon philosophy, philosophical theories are the closest things we have to understanding why people think the things they do, why people behave in different contexts, and these are things that have stood the test of time, that have been written hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, and they're still applicable, and that's something really powerful, I think. And it also, engaging, being involved in philosophy and reading this literature, it helps you develop your own thoughts. And especially now, especially young people, when they may only think the things they do because it's on trend, or because they don't know any different, they've never been exposed to anything different, or because perhaps they did say something or they did express something and they were immediately shut down because it wasn't what the rest of social discourse was saying. And so philosophy for young people is vital, because it means that people are developing the skills that they need to grow and to expand their own thoughts, and have the ability to discuss their own opinions with other people and be able to support that and back that up. And I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, I think it's so important to just be engaged in. I think a lot of people fall through this pothole, and Jordan Peterson talks about it, falls through this trap. And it's a trap that they try and pretty much teach you at university, because there is no one truth, ergo there is no truth, and ergo you shouldn't search for truth. And searching for truth is kind of like searching for meaning. And I feel like that lie, that you shouldn't be searching for truth, a lot of young people are finding that to be a lie, and that they need to go out there and look for meaning and truth. Theodora, what are your thoughts on why young people should be involved in philosophy?
Yeah, look, as a student of history, I think it's important to understand the different ideas that influenced the important moments in our past, in past centuries. And it's just like philosophy is probably the main influence on a lot of culture as well. A lot of the literature I read, it's impossible to understand without having some knowledge of philosophy. And that's it's really fun because it adds another layer to humanities disciplines that are not just philosophy. So, Luca and I recently had a chat about Heart of Darkness. Like, you can't comprehend Heart of Darkness without understanding the kind of philosophy that Joseph Conrad was reading. You can't read Dostoyevsky without understanding what kind of philosophy he was reading. So it's more than just understanding the theories, I guess. It's got like a practical aspect. I guess the most important one is just that to truly understand history, you've got to understand the ideas that went into decisions and conflicts. And
I think that's some really, really important points. But you mentioned Dostoyevsky, and we are introducing a new segment of the show right now, of Viral Banter, that will be continuing into the future. So, you have heard of MMA, but get ready for VBB, Viral Banter Battle. On today's show, Theodora and Luca will be fighting out to discover the answer to the most pressing question of our time. Who is the bigger nerd? I mean, who knows more about Dostoyevsky? So, Peumike, can I trust you to keep track of the scores?
I've got my trustworthy sticky notes, which won't betray me today, hopefully.
And Laura, I want you to keep your eye out for some cheating. Keep your eyes. Make sure we know that this is fair. We're going to go by the honor system on this. We know you're in front of a computer, but we're gonna go by, truth and honesty. So, first off, I want to know from Peumike and Laura who their money is on. Who do they think is going to win?
Oh, well, I saw an interesting book behind Theodora, and the collection there seems quite vast and expansive. And I feel that even if her mind's not there, the knowledge is going to seep through from behind. So I'm putting my money on Theodora today.
Ooh, I like that. It's all in good fun. Laura, who do you think?
Look, because I obviously can't express, who I can't pick favorites, and I can't do that because that's not right. For the sake of keeping things entertaining, I'll put my money on Luca, but also not just because of that, but because I know that you're both intelligent. But I'll put my money on Luca. Let's go.
Okay, so Luca and Theodora, do you have your buzzers? Theodora?
Got this little bell.
Perfect. Love it. And Luca, buzzer test from you. What was that? I didn't even hear it.
No,
Here we go.
I think he missed the thing. He actually
completely missed it. That's right. My coordination is on point.
Okay, so Luca, Theodora, you ready? May the battle begin. In what year was Crime and Punishment published? Theodora?
1885.
Okay, I'll give you a shot, Luca. Whoever's closest will win.
I'm going to go 1882.
I think Luca is actually closer, but not by that much. It's 1866.
I was earlier. I win.
Wow, that was embarrassing.
Okay. In what year was Dostoyevsky born? Closest wins.
Can I just say I love how Theodora is she's actually thinking about it, and Luke is just I have no idea.
We don't get points off if we get it wrong, do we?
Okay, we'll do no points off if you get it wrong. So you can
Okay.
But not endless guessing.
Okay, I'm not gonna go. I don't want to go into the sub-zero, but I want to say 1813.
1813. Okay. Luca, whoever's closest will win.
I'll probably say 1817.
Okay. So Luca's closer once again. 1821. Okay.
take my bets of Theodora now. Oh god, my bets are up. I didn't bet anything.
Such loyalty from Peumike right there.
Minus students, let's go.
This one I think is going to get you back in the game, Theodora. Which novel of Dostoyevsky is based on his life in a Serbian prison?
Siberian. I think
Siberian. Yeah, Siberian. Misread that. Siberian prison.
I think it's House of the Dead.
Correct. Woo. Okay, and question number 4. Dostoevsky wrote books to pay off what? Theodora?
His gambling debts.
And a bonus point, Theodora, I'll give you the shot first, and Luca can try and take this from you.
Okay.
Is what was his game of choice?
Oh shoot. Roulette. I don't know.
Correct.
Oh yes.
Sure, roulette.
Do you know
Yes.
how? Do you know how I know that? Do you know why I guess that? It's because I have a copy of The Gambler, which was sort of like about gambling, and it's just got like what I think is roulette apparatus on the front. So it was the only thing that came to mind. Oh, okay. I'm back in it.
So what are the scores right now, Laura? Peumike, you were keeping track of
So
scores.
my initial bet is we're currently winning. Theodora is 3 and Luca is 2.
Okay, getting heated here. Okay, true or false? Dostoyevsky originally wrote Crime and Punishment in first person.
Ooh.
Luca?
See, I do know he wrote it. I'm pretty sure he wrote it in parts, but first person.
You got a 50-50 shot.
I'm going to go with see, it's always 50-50 where I get it wrong. So I'm going to go with, can I ask for Laura's help? No?
Oh yeah,
Oh, actually, yeah. Okay, we can bring in a lifeline if you want.
Can I?
You
Can
get
I?
to choose. You get
It's
to
like
use
choose.
a
$1 million
lifeline.
hot seat. It's like $1
Don't
million
use a
hot seat.
lifeline
You
on a
know?
50-50 question.
Am I allowed to look at answers? Am I allowed to Google this?
No.
No. What do you reckon? Because he has written in the first person before. Like he wrote that one about the soldier.
Well, you got to think, if this is a true and false question, if it was false, then why is it being asked? Like, it seems like a pretty, you wouldn't ask it.
You wouldn't think.
You
So
wouldn't.
you see-
Okay, I'm gonna have
if
to
it
throw
was
over to
false,
Theodora soon. You're taking too much time.
Okay, we're gonna have to go with a solid yes.
2, 1. Correct. It is true.
Yeah, you see?
Okay. So, which 5 works are created to be are considered to be Dostoevsky's 5 great novels? I'm going to have some little things on this particular question because you've got to name 5. You get a point for each novel, but if you can only name 4 and the other one can name the book that you're missing, they steal the 5 points.
Wow.
What? That's such a stitch up.
Yeah. Okay, it's getting rough here. So, which works are considered to be Dostoevsky's great 5 novels?
Okay.
Buzz in when you want.
I'm gonna go The Brothers Karamazov,
Correct.
Crime and Punishment,
Correct.
The Idiot.
Correct.
Okay, it's getting hard. I'm
John's favorite. John's favorite.
John's favorite?
Or John's one that he's talked about.
Oh god. I thought that was Brothers Karamazov. Oh damn. Okay. Devils?
Incorrect.
No.
I'm gonna have to throw to Luca.
No!
Surely
no.
not.
But I only
What?
named 3.
My money was on
So
the demons as well. Oh no.
No,
Okay.
correct. No, you said devils though.
No, but hang on. That's
Yeah,
a
it's got
multiple
translation.
names.
That's
Okay.
a translational preference. So that's correct.
Okay,
on,
correct then. Okay,
Oh.
okay, correct.
Thank goodness.
Okay,
Oh, God.
I was looking at demons, so I was like, oh.
Okay. I'm trying so hard not to look over at my shelf where all my Dostoevsky books are. Okay.
Lucas, stop looking at the shelf.
Trying to look at the shelf behind her, going, oh,
No,
I
no
see Tesla.
Dostoevsky here. I wasn't going to give you any hints. I'm going to have to go out on a limb and say Notes from Underground.
Correct.
Oh, thank goodness. Whew.
So what have you named so far? How many has she named so far, Peumike?
That was 5.
That was 5.
5. Oh, 5 points to
Yay.
Theodora.
Hell yeah.
Okay.
You
What
thought
about-
I was going to lose, didn't you?
I had Notes from the Underground ready. I was like, I'm going to jump in, but I took it.
And so question number 7, and this will get into extra bonus points with a thing afterwards. But Peumike, what are the scores right now?
Currently, Luke is on 3 points, and Theodora is on 8 points.
Okay,
Yeah, we're doing well.
this is a two-part question. The first part of the question will only be worth 1 point. If you can do the second part, what do we think, Laura and Peumike? Do we give Luca the ability to steal if he gets the second part right?
Please.
Okay, let's make it exciting. Okay, what is Dostoyevsky's full name, and can you spell it?
Oh,
Oh my gosh.
wow.
We'll get points for closeness as well, I guess.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
Theodora?
no points off if you're wrong, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's Fyodor, Fyodor.
Right.
Okay. Whew. This is really tough. I want to say Ilich. Okay. Oh, I can spell his last name.
Okay.
If that's not his middle name, then I don't know what it is. Dostoevsky's Dostoevsky.
Correct.
Yay.
And Luca, I'll give you the ability to steal if you can
Okay.
spell his middle name.
All right. I think I know his middle name. Isn't it Mikhailovich?
Correct.
Oh.
Ooh.
Oh.
Mikhailovich. Okay. MIKHAILOVICH. LOVICH.
Correct.
Oh.
Nice.
Well, that was definitely a nail-biting battle. Luca takes the crown today.
Oh.
I'm sure Theodora will be back to challenge that in the future. We are going to be continuing the coordinator showdown from now on. So if you would like to challenge a member of Generation Liberty on a topic, or there's a topic you think we should cover, just get in contact and let us know. We want you to be involved in this show. And also, I would just like to get a little bit from you, Luca and Theodora, just on, because we've been talking about Dostoevsky in this quiz, but why do you two love his books so much, and why do you think it's important that young people read his books? Luca.
Oh, look, I could rattle off any number of reasons. But look, apart from the fact that he's just a great writer, and like if you read his stuff, I don't think there's many other places where you can find one conversation that goes for 100 pages or more. But just the way he writes is so like, you can learn so much, not just in terms of vocab, but it's also, what can you learn? And this is what Laura was kind of touching on before. It's like, what can you learn about the human condition? You know, I mean, Crime and Punishment is all about the human condition. And when a person is held by ideology, what happens to them as a person, right? And there's a lot of great themes in Dostoevsky's works that are still applicable today. And that's what makes him so timeless, is that even though he's set, you know, in Russia in this period, the reason why he's translated into so many languages and people read him is because he has timeless lessons for us to learn. And that's a really important thing, not just for Dostoevsky, but for literature as a whole, really.
Yeah, there's one particular thing that I think is like a really, really interesting point that he conveys, and that Jordan Peterson explains in a lecture you can look up. I'll put the link here, about, especially, he kind of touches on the concept of straw man, because Dostoevsky, when he puts ideas together, he doesn't create a straw man. He creates
Exactly.
the absolute, like, perfect argument of the opposite. So
that's right. Like, he takes the two of them. It's like a kid with Lego blocks, right? He builds the two strongest Lego things he can, and then just goes to see what happens, right? That's what makes him. He's not biased. He's just like, these are the two things that are occurring, and this is what I think is. It's like a philosophical thought experiment drawn out into a compelling and interesting novel. You know, he's great. He's really good. Go read him.
Very true. And Theodora, why would you say that young people should read Dostoevsky?
Well, so I think there are three main reasons. The first is obviously that he's an amazing storyteller. I think he's probably the greatest novel novelist of all time, I'd say. His stories are just so entertaining and weirdly relatable. You don't think you would be relating to, a uni student in late 19th century Russia, but you somehow do, because he explores so many universal ideas and he understands human psychology like no other writer does, I think. The second reason is, even though he's discussing really major, profound ideas, and even though he's usually considered a conservative writer, he's not ideological in any way. He's not preachy in any way. He's genuinely, as Luca said, it's like a massive thought experiment in the form of a novel. He's working through the problems of humanity with you, and genuinely, he doesn't pretend to know the answers to the big questions. And so the last reason, I think it was Albert Camus who said that the real 19th century prophet was not Karl Marx, it was Dostoyevsky. And Dostoyevsky just foretold the impact that nihilism would have, especially on young people. I think it's in the work Devils, he sort of explores the infiltration of radical leftist ideologies into the younger generations. And you can really learn a lot about the disastrous consequences of that from Dostoevsky. So I think even though these books were written over a century ago, they're still very, very relevant to today. And I think everyone should be reading Dostoevsky.
No, very, very good point. I actually started reading Crime and Punishment and got halfway through when my Peterson phase. Because of this show, I'm going to finish it. So that's been good.
Get onto it, Renee.
Get onto it. And so Peumike and Laura, I'd also like to know, have you come across any Dostoevsky, and have you got touched it in high school or in university at all?
At least on my end, I haven't actually delved into that magnificent world as yet. These two have made a very compelling case, so I might pick up Crime and Punishment today and have a flick through it. But no, I definitely think from what they've both said, I'll definitely explore it. I have seen it being brought up in quite a few Jordan Peterson lectures before, and the arguments that he makes, if it's anything resembling what Peterson's cases are, and if that's where his source of inspiration is, I cannot imagine the kind of quality that's going to be in his works. So I'll definitely explore them.
And Laura?
Yeah, no, same. I regretfully haven't read or even had a look at any of my studies into Dostoevsky, but I am feeling very, very motivated to, because like I was saying before, it's amazing that what Theodora was saying, that it's amazing how a writer, a novelist, from late 19th century can still have ideas that are relevant and applicable to us today, in our culture, in our society. So I think that's really special and really amazing. So I will read.
And I think right now, especially in the kind of circumstances we're in, there's a lot of people who feel like they have to go out there and fix the world. But kind of what Dostoevsky talks about, and what Peterson talks about as well, and looking into philosophy will help you do this, is concentrate on fixing yourself first and making you the best person. And you're going to find that you're going to have a more positive impact on the world generally if you focus on that kind of improvement instead of things that are completely out of your control. So I think that was an amazing, amazing episode, guys. Thank you so much for coming on. I would love to thank my 4 amazing guests this week, Luca, Peumike, Laura, and Theodora. And as always, if you are not a Generation Liberty member yet, please go to generationliberty.org.au. It's only $10 to join, and you will get a bag of goodies that is so awesome, so worth over $10. You'll get updates on Viral Banter, more great new Gen Lib content. We've got a new website going. We're the biggest youth liberty movement in Australia. Get involved, and thank you for listening. So make sure you stay safe, stay philosophical, and stay free.